Great. Okay, so I would like to start this meeting by asking, how are you? How are you feeling? I know that the last couple of weeks before the exam session is pretty stressful, and that you have a lot of deadlines or exams. So I wanted to ask, how are you? Have you managed to finish this week, past 2 weeks? Good or not so good? So, if you cannot talk right now, it's not a problem. We hope that we are going to be here until 8, 9 o'clock in order to answer to all of your questions if you have any. And
Okay.
of course, if you are too busy entering in this moment or engaging in a conversation, it is not a problem. We are here to help you, to assist you, and to answer any kind of questions you might have. Okay, for today, we prepared a presentation that I hope that it is going to be a bit useful for you. So, first and foremost, how do you think the exam session is going to be? Do you think it is going to be harder? It is going to be easier than your pre-session? What are your expectations for it?
Harder. I think it's gonna be harder.
Harder. Okay. Do you have any other opinions? Okay. So from my previous experience, because I graduated the English computer science stream at Phil's, always the pre-session was much harder than the actual session. And this is just because we had a lot of stuff going on during the pre-session. You needed to do, I don't know, homework, project, 3 exams in the same week. So at least from my experience, usually the exam session is easier. You don't need to go to courses, you don't need to go to labs. You just need to stay put and study. You might think that it is rather stressful.
You are on mute. Okay. I'm confused.
Diana, vezi că nu-ți mai merge microfonul.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. So I know that my student session was usually extremely stressful and it involved a lot of complaining. But I also managed to study a bit. But before starting the student session, I thought that during the exam session, I am not going to have any kind of time for myself because the pre-session was so difficult. I really thought that in the exam session, I will be even more stressed and I would have so much more to do. But actually, during the student session, because you have such free time, I believe that you have a greater social life than in the pre-session. Of course, nobody studies really much, but I hope that you are going to. Of course, everybody complains and everybody stresses about the student session. It is normal. Just make sure that you are going to actually study during it in order to take all of your exams. So I prepared a very brief presentation about what can you do, just some general advice on how you can navigate to this student session. So what is very important, time management. I can assure you that time management is pretty difficult. My advice to you, especially when you have lots of difficult exams, would be to try to schedule them at least 2 days apart. In my first year of study, I had a calculus exam one day and 2 days after linear algebra exam. And I can assure you that it is not fun to have only one day between exams. It is tiring, it is difficult. Furthermore, I would really advise you to plan a study schedule and try not to procrastinate. Try to stick to the plan. You can prioritize the study sessions based on, of course, when you have the exams and also how difficult that exam would be. How much do you already know about that exam? So it is solely up to you. How would you like to plan it? Try to study for an exam at least for 2 days, not only the day before. It is a trend to study for one exam the day before. I am sure I did it, and not only once. And it is not pretty. You get even more stressed, and it is rather tiring to try to retain so much more information in only one day. And of course, practice makes perfect. So ideally, in an ideal world, every student would study during the semester, not only during the exam session. So hopefully, there are at least some of you that already studied a bit for the exams. And from my personal experience, I had a physics course in the 3rd year, and I was so panicked about the exam and about the professor that I studied and did my homework every week. And I tried also to be active during the course just because I was extremely panicked that I wouldn't pass that course. And it was one of the easiest exams to study for just because I practiced a lot during the semester. And it was just little things like trying to understand what the professor said during the course, asking questions. Or if the professor asked questions, I tried to think of a viable answer, and so on. Also, we live in a world in which we have access to lots of information. Everybody has at least one social media account. Everybody likes to be in contact with each other, but when you are studying, it is very important to really focus on what you are studying. It is very important to take breaks when you study because nobody can study for 8 hours straight and really retain that much information. So it is good to have your study time and your breaks. And during those breaks, you can do whatever you want. But during study time, it is very important to just focus on the study. Also, what I've learned during my first year of university is that sleep is actually your best friend during the exam session and, of course, in life. Because what do we do every night? We go to sleep. So I managed to find out that we actually have some sleep cycles. We have a 90-minute sleep cycle that is the shortest one. And in that sleep cycle, we get some light sleep, some deep sleep, and we enter a phase called rapid eye movement, REM, which is very important in order to be rest for the next day, in order to retain information. So during a 90-minute cycle, you get that light sleep, that deep sleep, and the most important one, the REM sleep. Ideally, an adult would need at least 7 hours and a half of sleep every night. So that would be 5 sleep cycles. But you can manage very well even with 4 sleep cycles. And if you ever wondered why some days you could sleep for 6 hours and be very well rested and be full of life, and other times you would sleep like 10 hours and you would be extremely tired also the next day. This is because of sleep cycles. So whenever you are going to wake up, when inside this sleep cycle, either light sleep, deep sleep, or rapid eye movement, it would be very tiring, especially if you wake up during the deep sleep or rapid eye movement. So what I did when I had exams, I planned my sleep schedule extremely
Hello.
tight. You would need about 15 to 20 minutes to go to sleep usually when you go to bed, and I would do a quick math to see if I can sleep for 4.5 hours or 6 hours prior to an exam. And from my previous experience, for me, the minimum of sleep cycles that I really need in order to function properly would be 3. But if you know that you like to sleep, then you might need at least 6 hours in order to feel rested. Also, your mental health is very important. So when you are going to some stressful period, such as the exam session, please try to stay positive and try to stay healthy. I know it is difficult when you have so much going on to also take care of yourself, but that is very important, because if you don't take care of yourself, then who else would? So try to listen to your body,
Ooh.
try to have a positive attitude, and also try to relax if you can. Okay, you can be stressed about an exam, you can complain about it, you can study for the exam, but it is also very important to just sit back and relax a bit, breathe, and be positive, and try to take care of you both mentally and physically. And the last couple of things that I find very important are regarding learning styles. First, find what style of learning suits you best, and then what learning method suits you best based on the style of learning you might have. We are very different people, and it is normal, and it is very good that we are different, so we do not fit in a box. So you do not fit necessarily in just one style of learning. You might be a visual learner, for example, but on the social learner also. So find really what suits you best. There are different types of learning. You can be a social learner, so in groups you might feel comfortable learning. You can be a loner, and studying by yourself independently would be the best method for you, of course. You can be a visual learner, making cards, or you can be a audio learner, and listening to stuff really help you. It doesn't matter, just find out what works best for you, because it is rather important to know what suits you best so that your learning experience can be enhanced, and it would be much easier for you to start studying for an exam if you already know what works for you. And I also gathered a few learning techniques that I would like to share with you. I don't know if they would be useful for you or helpful. I hope so. You can try them out if you wish, if you think that it might suit you. So first, talking about the Feynman technique, that it is rather great for all types of learners, but of course, you will need to apply this method how it suits you best. So how this goes, basically you just need to choose what you want to learn. It can be a concept within a subject that you have. You can think of, let's say, inheritance in object-oriented programming, or in calculus, some partial derivatives, and then write down what you know. And after that, you identify what you do not know and revise all the materials that you have on that subject in order to see what is missing there. And then after you do your research and you revise the material, you can try to simplify the concept and explain it in your own words, because this is extremely important to know about a concept, not necessarily the definition from the dictionary or from WeSchool or other websites, but it is very good to understand the concept and always be prepared to explain that concept in your own words. And what is even more interesting, you can also try to explain it in your own words and explain it like you would explain that concept to a child. Why? Because children are like sponges and they can learn very fast a lot of things, but they do not necessarily have the vocabulary or the deeper understanding behind concepts. So when you try to explain something like you would to a child, you would really dive into that particular topic and really understand it on a higher level. Other two learning techniques, Pomodoro and flow time, are rather similar. Flow time was created in order to get rid of a big shortcoming of Pomodoro. So basically in Pomodoro, you choose a topic, you set a timer for 25 minutes and try to learn everything in those 25 minutes. After that, you take a 5-minute break and you repeat the process. And after the first time, you take a longer break. what is not necessarily good about this technique is that it has time boundaries set. You might not need 25 minutes to learn something, to understand something, or you might need more than 25 minutes and then feel like you need the break. So flow time was created based on Pomodoro, and for every 25 minutes or less of study, you get a 5 minutes break. For 25 to 50 minutes of work, you would take an 8-minute break. For 50 to 90 minutes of work, you take a 10-minute break. And if you study for more than 90 minutes, then you can take a 15-minute break when you finish. Other learning technique would be the learner system, that it is time consuming, but it's good if you are a visual learner and really like making flashcards with some synthesized information. So first you create the flashcards that you need for a particular subject, and then you create boxes for these flashcards based on the difficulty level. You review the flashcards from the easiest level to the hardest. So you start with the easiest, you review the flashcards, and when you are feeling comfortable and you know the materials, then you can go to the medium level box. When after that you revise them also, and then when you are feeling comfortable with what you've learned, you can go with the high difficulty level box. Spaced repetition. This is good if you learn when you are writing stuff down. So first you need to create your own materials. You can summarize or take only the main concepts that you want to learn and then explain them. And then you will review those materials within one day after you make them. And after that, you review them constantly by trying to remember first the information you have on those material and then check if you remember it correctly. So basically, practice makes perfect. SQI3 and PQ4R are also very similar. SQI3, first you read the headlines and the subchapters of the material that you have. Then you formulate questions that you might think of the specific material. Then you read the material while trying to answer those questions that you put. And then you try to recall the information in your own words and repeat it, review it until you manage to learn. The PQ4R, first you scan the material, then you put yourself some questions that you want to be answered when you are reading the material. But after that, you just take a break and reflect on what you have read. So why would this concept be important? How this concept relates to to another concept, and so on. And after that, you recall the information and then you review it. And this is very good for people who can remember if they are concentrated on reading the material. Interleaving, this is very nice if you have topics that are related. So first and foremost, you need to choose 2 or 3 related topics. For example, in object-oriented programming, you can choose inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism. In calculus, you might get the first order derivative and the second order derivatives, for example. And then when you are studying them, you switch between those topics. So you learn something from one topic, you are feeling comfortable with it, and then you review something from the other topic and review it until you feel comfortable with it. And this would help you create links between the topics you have chosen. Elaboration. This is rather easy. You know that you need to study something. So first you make a summary about that topic. Then for every important part, you try to elaborate within the summary. After you elaborate, you can review it and also add more information to it. And then connect all this information either to a context or to your personal experience. Okay. And one of my, let's say, favorite learning methods that I have used, I formed study groups. From what I have read on regarding this topic, it is nice to have 3 to 4 people in your study group, because a higher number of persons might increase your chance to procrastinate instead of just learning. Study groups are rather important, especially if you are a social learner. Within a study group, you can ask yourselves questions. If somebody knows better a concept, they can explain it to the others. I can understand one part of your topic, and my friend in the study group understands another topic within the same subject. So I explain the concept to my friend explains it to me, and it's basically a win-win. What you need to know is that there are 2 types of learning: passive learning and active learning. Passive learning is basically when the professor comes to class, has a PowerPoint presentation and starts talking. And the professor talks and talks and talks about that topic. Whereas in active learning, the professor would engage in a conversation with the students, or they would ask for the students to make a project together in order to have also independent study, but some group work. And the highest retention rate one can have while studying is when they are capable to teach others that topic. So if you feel very comfortable with the subject within that study group, you can also take like a teacher role and explain to others those concepts. And this will also strengthen your knowledge regarding that subject, because at least in my opinion, you really know something when you can teach others and you can explain that thing in a lot of different ways so that another can understand what you have taught. So this would be my greatest advice if you need help when studying, or if you have a group of friends. Try at least once to see if it works for you to form such a study group. At least for me, it worked. And I had colleagues that received a higher mark at the exam, even though I was the one in the professor role in our study group, just because I understood algorithm easier than them, so I was able to explain them the algorithm. But because I might say that I am a bit lazy, or it is very difficult to learn something motamo. So if you give me formulas after formulas, I wouldn't be able to retain all of them. But others, of course, they can remember formulas really well. We are different. This is what makes us special. And if you want to share your experience regarding the pre-session, I am more than happy to listen to you. And I believe that feedback is very important. And not only feedback, but also sharing your experience and seeing that you are not alone in this whole experience. So you're not the only students that are going through a tough time with the pre-session, and of course the nervousness before the exam session. And of course, if you have any questions, I am extremely happy to hear them and answer them as much as I can.